The morning sky was heavy with dark clouds as Andra hurried down the subway steps, checking his watch for the third time in 2 minutes. He was going to be late, and Mr. Patterson wasn't the type of boss who accepted excuses, even good ones. The rain had started as a light drizzle but quickly turned into a downpour, leaving Andra's jacket damp despite his rush from the apartment to the station. "Just perfect," he muttered, feeling water seep into his left shoe through a small crack in the sole. He'd been meaning to buy new ones, but the money always seemed needed elsewhere. His mom's medication had gone up again last month. The platform was packed with Monday morning commuters, all wearing the same tired expression, all staring at their phones or straight ahead at nothing in particular. The electronic board showed 3 minutes until the next train. Andra took a deep breath and tried to smooth down his tie, which had twisted during his sprint to the station. When the train finally arrived, it was already crowded. People pushed forward, that unspoken city urgency taking over as everyone tried to claim whatever space they could. Andra managed to squeeze through the doors just before they closed, finding himself pressed between a man in a business suit and a teenager with headphones loud enough that Andra could hear the bass thumping. The train jerked forward, and he grabbed the overhead rail, trying to find a comfortable position for what would be a 20-minute ride downtown. That's when he noticed her. She was standing near the door at the other end of the car, one hand resting on her very pregnant belly, the other gripping a pole as the train swayed. She wore a simple blue dress and a light jacket that didn't quite close over her round middle. Her face showed discomfort with every bump and turn of the train. Andra looked around. The car was full of people who seemed determined not to notice the pregnant woman standing there. A group of young professionals were engrossed in conversation. An older man was hidden behind his newspaper. 2 women in scrubs scrolled through their phones. Without thinking twice, Andra began making his way through the packed car. "Excuse me," he said repeatedly as he navigated between annoyed passengers. When he reached the woman, he noticed dark circles under her eyes and a certain sadness in her expression that struck him. "Would you like my spot?" he asked, pointing back to where he had been standing. "I'm getting off soon anyway." It wasn't true, but it made the offer easier. The woman looked up, surprise crossing her features. For a moment, she said nothing, just stared at him with an expression Andra couldn't quite read. Then her eyes, green with flecks of gold, he noticed, began to fill with tears. "Aren't you okay?" Andra asked, suddenly concerned he had somehow offended her. She tried to speak but instead made a small choking sound as tears spilled down her cheeks. People nearby began to stare, some with curiosity, others with discomfort. A man in a suit took a small step away. "I'm sorry," she finally managed, wiping her face with the back of her hand. "It's just been a really hot morning, and you're the first person who's been nice to me today." Her voice broke again, and more tears came. Andra wasn't sure what to do. He wasn't the type to get involved in strangers' problems, but something about her seemed so genuinely distressed that he couldn't just walk away. "It's really no problem," he said, trying to sound reassuring. "Come on, I was standing back there. There's a bit more room." He gently led her through the crowd, noticing how people now moved aside more willingly, perhaps embarrassed by their earlier indifference. When they reached the spot, Andra positioned himself so that she was somewhat shielded from the jostling of other passengers. "I'm Andra," he said, offering a kind smile. "Lily," she replied, still sniffling but seeming to regain her composure. "I'm sorry about that. Pregnancy hormones make everything 10 times more emotional." "No need to apologize," Andra said. "When's the baby due?" 4 weeks, Lily said, placing a protective hand on her belly. "Though the doctor thinks it might be sooner." The train stopped at the next station. More people crowded in, pushing Andra closer to Lily. He was acutely aware of invading her space and tried to lean away as much as possible. "It's fine," she said, noticing his discomfort. "Better you than some of these other folks." She attempted a smile, but Andra could see it didn't reach her eyes. "Rough morning?" he asked, instantly wondering if he was prying too much. Lily let out a small bitter laugh. "Rough month, more like it." She hesitated, then added, "My husband, well, ex-husband now, I guess, decided having a baby was too much responsibility. He left 2 days ago." Andra felt a flash of anger at this unknown man. "That's awful," he said simply, because what else could he say? "Yeah," Lily agreed. And today I have this important doctor's appointment because there might be some complications, and my car wouldn't start, and the bus was late, and She took a deep breath. I just felt like the universe was piling on, you know. Andrew nodded. He knew exactly what that felt like. My mom used to say bad luck comes in threes, so maybe you're done now. This time, Lily's smile seemed genuine. Your mom sounds wise. She was, Andrew said, a familiar pang in his chest. She raised me by herself after my dad died when I was 8. Strongest person I've ever known. The conversation flowed more easily after that. Andrew told Lily about his job as a graphic designer at a marketing firm, and she shared that she worked as a kindergarten teacher but was now on early maternity leave. They discovered they both loved old black and white movies and have the same favorite coffee shop, though Lily lamented she could only drink decaf these days. Andrew was so engrossed in their conversation that he missed his stop. Wait, wasn't that Sherman Street? Lily asked, noticing the station sign as they pulled away. Andrew tried to look nonchalant. It's fine. I can get off at the next one and walk back. The truth was, it would make him at least 30 minutes late now. Lily's eyes widened. That was your stop? Why didn't you say something? Andrew shrugged. I was enjoying our talk. Something in Lily's expression shifted then, a look of genuine surprise and perhaps something deeper, recognition, maybe, of a kindness that went beyond simple politeness. Thank you, she said softly. The train slowed again, approaching the next station. This is me, Lily said, gathering her small purse. The medical center is just up the block. As the doors opened and people began pushing to exit, Andrew made a split-second decision that would change the course of both their lives. Do you want some company? He asked. For the appointment, I mean. No one should have to go to those alone. Lily stared at him, clearly taken aback by the offer from a man she just met. In her eyes, Andrew could see a battle between caution and desperate need for support. You do that? She asked. But what about your job? Andrew thought about Mr. Patterson's face turning red with anger, about the project deadline that was looming, about the promotion he'd been working toward. Then he looked at Lily, alone, pregnant, abandoned, and none of those things seemed important anymore. Some things matter more, he said simply, stepping off the train beside her. The medical center was a tall glass building that seemed to stretch endlessly into the cloudy sky. Andrew held the door open as Lily waddled through, one hand on her lower back. The lobby was busy with people rushing in all directions, some in wheelchairs, others with canes, or walking alongside nurses in colorful scrubs. Third floor, Lily said, pointing to the elevators. Dr. Reynolds' office. Andrew nodded, suddenly aware of how strange this situation was. He was missing work to accompany a woman he'd met less than an hour ago to her prenatal appointment. If someone had told him this morning that this would be his day, he would have laughed. In the elevator, Lily leaned against the wall and closed her eyes briefly. Thanks again for coming with me, she said softly. I know it's weird to accept help from a stranger, but today just felt like too much to handle alone. It's no problem, Andrew replied, that a nagging voice in his head reminded him about the important client meeting he was missing. He pushed the thought away. Sometimes we all need a helping hand. The elevator doors opened to a waiting room painted in calming blue tones. A few other pregnant women sat in the cushioned chairs, some with partners, others alone. A receptionist with curly hair and bright red glasses looked up as they approached. Lily Thompson, Lily said. I have a 9:30 appointment with Dr. Reynolds. The receptionist tapped at her keyboard. Yes, I see you here. You're actually a bit late, but the doctor is running behind too, so it works out. She handed Lily a clipboard. Fill these out, please, and we'll call you when she's ready. Lily took the clipboard and looked around for an empty seat. Andrew followed her to a corner where 2 chairs were available side by side. As she started filling out the forms, Andrew noticed her hand was shaking slightly. You okay? He asked quietly. Lily bit her lower lip. Just nervous. My last appointment, Dr. Reynolds mentioned something about my blood pressure being high. And with all the stress lately, she trailed off, focusing on the paperwork. Andrew wasn't sure what to say, so he just sat there, trying not to look too out of place among the expectant mothers and their partners. He pulled out his phone and saw he had 3 missed calls from work and 5 text messages from his coworker Damon asking where he was. He sent a quick message saying he had a family emergency and would explain later. It wasn't exactly a lie, was it? Lally might not be family, but this certainly felt like an emergency. Lily Thompson. A nurse called from a doorway. Lally stood up, then hesitated and looked at Andra. Would you mind coming in with me? I know it's asking a lot, but... Of course, Andra said before she could finish. He followed her through the door, down a short hallway, and into an exam room where the nurse took Lily's weight, blood pressure, and temperature. Blood pressure still elevated, the nurse noted, frowning slightly as she wrote something on a chart. Doctor will be in shortly. When the nurse left, Lily sat on the exam table, the paper crinkling beneath her. Her face had gone pale. My sister had high blood pressure during her pregnancy, Andra said, trying to sound reassuring. Everything turned out fine. Her baby boy is 3 now and running everyone ragged. Lily smiled weakly. I didn't know I'd be doing this alone, she whispered. When Tom and I found out about the baby, we were so excited. We painted the nursery together. Yellow, because we wanted to be surprised about boy or girl. Her voice cracked. Now he's gone, and I'm sitting here with a man I just met on the subway. A tear slid down her cheek, and Andra handed her a tissue from a box on the counter. Life takes weird turns sometimes, he said. My mom always said. A knock on the door interrupted him, and Dr. Reynolds entered. She was a tall woman with salt and pepper hair pulled back in a neat bun. She glanced at Andra with mild surprise but didn't comment. Lily, your blood pressure is concerning me, she said, getting straight to the point as she looked at the chart. 140/95. That's edging into preeclampsia territory. What does that mean? Lily asked, her voice small. It means we need to monitor you closely. The protein in your urine has increased too. Dr. Reynolds sat on a rolling stool and faced Lily directly. I'm recommending bed rest for the next week, and then we'll reassess. If the numbers don't improve, we might need to consider early delivery. Lily's hand flew to her mouth. But I'm only 36 weeks. Is that safe? 36 weeks is generally fine for delivery, but we prefer to get closer to 37 or 38 if possible, the doctor explained. The main concern is your health and preventing complications like seizures or organ damage. Andra saw Lily's face crumple. I can't go on bed rest, she said desperately. I live alone now. I need to work. I have to get the nursery finished. I have to. Lily, Dr. Reynolds said firmly but kindly, this is serious. Do you have family nearby who can help? Lily shook her head. My parents are in Arizona. My sister has her hands full with 3 kids in Chicago. I was counting on Tom, but she didn't finish the sentence. A heavy silence filled the room. Andra felt his heart twist. He barely knew this woman, but the thought of her going home alone to an empty apartment, dealing with a high-risk pregnancy by herself, made something inside him ache. She has help, he heard himself say. Both women turned to look at him with surprise. Andra swallowed hard but continued, I mean, I can help. My work is flexible. It wasn't, but he'd figure something out. And I'm good at assembling furniture and stuff. Dr. Reynolds raised an eyebrow, clearly trying to assess the relationship between them. We just met, Lily explained, looking embarrassed. He offered me his seat on the subway. And now you're at her doctor's appointment. Dr. Reynolds asked Andra directly. Andra felt heat rise to his face. It seemed like she needed someone in her corner today. Dr. Reynolds studied him for a moment, then turned back to Lily. Well, you definitely need support right now. Let's run a few more tests today, and then we'll discuss a care plan. As the doctor stepped out to order the tests, Lily turned to Andra with wide eyes. You don't have to do this, she said. You've already been so kind, but you don't even know me. Andra looked at her, this brave, scared woman facing one of life's biggest challenges alone, and felt something click into place. Sometimes, he said, you meet someone and just know you're supposed to help them. My mom would have called it fate. Lily's eyes welled with fresh tears, but this time there was a hint of something else behind them. Something that looked a lot like hope. The afternoon sun broke through the clouds as Andra and Lily left the medical center. The rain had stopped, leaving puddles that reflected the blue sky like tiny mirrors on the sidewalk. Lily walked slowly, clutching a folder of papers and prescriptions the doctor had given her. "So," Andrew said, breaking the silence that had fallen between them since they'd left Dr. Reynolds' office. "Bed rest, huh?" Lily nodded, her face tight with worry. "I don't even know how I'm going to manage. I was barely keeping it together before, and now I can't even go to work." Andrew hesitated before asking, "What about money? Do you have sick leave or something?" "Some," Lily said, "but I was saving it for after the baby comes." She stopped walking and turned to face him. "Andrew, you've been incredibly kind, but I need to be realistic. We met 4 hours ago. You can't rearrange your life for a stranger with a mountain of problems." Andrew scratched his head, knowing she was right. It was crazy to get this involved. He had his own life, his own problems. His boss had already called twice more during Lily's tests, and the last voicemail sounded ominous. But looking at Lily standing there, brave despite everything falling apart around her, he couldn't just walk away. "Let me at least help you get home and settle today," he suggested. "Then we can figure out next steps. Have you eaten anything?" Lily's stomach growled on cue, making them both laugh. "I'll take that as a no," Andrew said. "Come on, there's a diner around the corner. My treat." The diner was a cozy place with red vinyl booths and the smell of fresh coffee hanging in the air. They slid into a booth by the window, and a waitress with frizzy gray hair appeared almost instantly. "What can I get you too?" she asked, pencil poised over her notepad. "I'll have the biggest stack of pancakes you've got," Lily said, her eyes lighting up. "With extra syrup, and bacon, and orange juice." Feeding for two, the waitress nodded approvingly. "And you, dear?" Andrew ordered a burger and fries, suddenly realizing he was starving too. As the waitress walked away, he pulled out his phone to check his messages. "You should call your boss," Lily said quietly. "I saw all those notifications earlier." Andrew grimaced. "Yeah, I probably should." He excused himself and stepped outside to make the call. 5 minutes later, he returned to the booth, where Lily's pancakes had already arrived. His expression told the story before he even sat down. "That bad?" Lily asked, pausing with her fork midair. "Let's just say I should update my resume," Andrew said, trying to sound casual. "But it's okay. That place was a dead end anyway." Lily put down her fork. "You got fired? Because of me?" Andrew shook his head. "No, because I missed an important client meeting, and because my boss is a jerk who's been looking for a reason." "I'm so sorry," Lily whispered, her eyes filling with tears again. "Hey, no more crying," Andrew said gently. "Eat your pancakes before they get cold. Besides, I've been thinking about looking for something new for months." The waitress arrived with Andrew's burger, and they ate in silence for a few minutes. The food seemed to revive them both, and gradually the conversation drifted to lighter topics. "So if you weren't designing boring corporate logos, what would you want to do?" Lily asked, mopping up syrup with her last bite of pancake. Andrew thought about it. "I've always wanted to illustrate children's books," he admitted. "I have a whole portfolio of drawings I've never shown anyone." "You should show me," Lily said, her face brightening. "Maybe I will," Andrew replied, surprised by how much he liked the idea. After paying the bill, they faced the question of what came next. Andrew offered to help Lily get home, and she hesitantly accepted. They caught a cab to her apartment in a modest building on the east side of town. "It's nothing fancy," Lily warned as she unlocked the door. The apartment was small but neat, with soft gray walls and a cozy blue couch facing a small TV. What caught Andrew's eye, though, was the half-finished nursery visible through an open door. Just as Lily had said, the walls were a cheerful yellow. A crib stood partly assembled in the middle of the room, surrounded by boxes of baby items. "Tom left in the middle of putting that together," Lily explained, following his gaze. "Said he was just going out for more screws." Her voice was flat. "That was 3 days ago." Andrew walked into the nursery and looked at the crib. "I can finish this," he said. "It's not that complicated." "You don't have to," Lily began. "I know I don't have to," Andrew interrupted gently, "but I want to help." For the next 2 hours, Andrew worked on assembling the crib while Lily sat in a rocking chair in the corner, directing him through the instructions. They talked about everything and nothing, favorite childhood memories, worst jobs they'd ever had, dreams for the future. Despite having just met, conversation flowed easily between them. "So you grew up with just your mom?" Lily asked as Andra tightened the last screw on the crib. "Yeah, after my dad died, it was just us," Andra said, testing the sturdiness of his work. "She was amazing, worked 2 jobs to put me through school. Even when things were tight, she made sure I had art supplies." "She sounds wonderful," Lily said softly. "She was," Andra replied, the familiar ache returning. "Cancer took her 3 years ago. But she lived long enough to see me graduate college, which was her big dream." "I'm sorry," Lily said, resting her hand on her belly. "I'd always imagined my parents being grandparents, you know. My dad teaching my kid to fish, my mom baking cookies together." "They still can," Andra pointed out. "Arizona isn't that far." "I guess," Lily sighed. "But it's not the same as having them nearby." She tried to stand up from the rocking chair but winced and sat back down. "You okay?" Andra asked, instantly concerned. "Just sore," Lily assured him. "My back's been killing me all day." Andra glanced at his watch. It was already 6:30 p.m. "Have you thought about dinner? You should probably eat and then rest, right?" Lily nodded. "There's not much in the fridge, though. I was supposed to go grocery shopping today." "I can grab something," Andra offered. "Or order takeout. Doctor's orders, you need to rest." That made Lily smile. "There's a good Chinese place that delivers. Menus on the fridge." As Andra went to find the menu, his phone rang. It was Damon from work. "Hey man, what happened today? Peterson is furious." "I know," Andra said, stepping into the living room to talk. "Family emergency." "Since when do you have family besides your aunt in Florida?" Damon asked suspiciously. Andra hesitated, unsure how to explain the strange day he had. "It's complicated, but I'm helping someone who really needs it right now." "Well, Peterson's already cleaning out your desk," Damon said. "But listen, my cousin works at Rivera Design Group. They're looking for someone with your skills. Want me to put in a word?" Andra felt a surge of gratitude. "That would be amazing, Damon. Thanks." "No problem. Just promise to tell me the real story someday." After hanging up, Andrew returned to find Lily looking through a sketchbook he'd left on the coffee table. "I hope you don't mind," she said, not looking up. "These fell out of your bag when you were in the nursery." Her finger traced over a drawing of a little girl and a dragon having a tea party. "These are beautiful." Andra felt his face grow warm. "Just doodles." "These aren't just doodles," Lily insisted, flipping through more pages. "You really should be illustrating children's books." Their eyes met, and something shifted in the air between them. Here was a woman he'd known for less than a day, yet somehow she saw something in him that he'd been afraid to show the world. "Maybe I will," he said softly. "After all, seems like I have some free time now." Chinese food containers littered the coffee table as Andra and Lily watched an old movie on TV. It was nearly 10 p.m., and Andra kept thinking he should leave, but each time he mentioned it, Lily would ask a question about his artwork or tell a story about one of her kindergarten students, and somehow another hour would pass. "I should really get going," Andra said during a commercial break. "You need to rest, and I need to." He trailed off, realizing he didn't actually have anywhere pressing to be. No job to wake up for tomorrow. Lily shifted uncomfortably on the couch, wincing slightly as she adjusted a pillow behind her back. "Yeah, I guess it is getting late." As Andra stood and gathered the empty food containers, Lily suddenly gasped. "What's wrong?" Andra asked, immediately alert. "Nothing," Lily said, but her face told a different story. "Just a really strong kick. This little one's been extra active today." She rubbed her belly in slow circles. Andra nodded, but something about her expression kept him from turning away. "Are you sure you're okay?" Lily bit her lip. "I don't know. I've been having these back pains on and off all evening. Dr. Reynolds said to call if anything felt unusual, but I don't want to be that paranoid first-time mom who calls for nothing." "Better paranoid than sorry," Andra said, putting down the containers. "How often are the pains coming?" "I don't know, maybe every 20 minutes. Lily's voice rose slightly. "But it's probably just from sitting too long or something. The baby's not due for another month." Andra grabbed his phone. Let's time them just to be sure. For the next hour, they kept track of Lily's pains. At first, they came irregularly, but soon they were 18 minutes apart, then 15. I think we should call the doctor, Andrew said firmly after a particularly strong pain made Lily grip the couch cushion. Dr. Reynolds answered the after-hours line herself. After listening to Lily describe her symptoms, her voice turned serious. Lily, I want you to go to the hospital. With your blood pressure issues, we can't take chances. This could be early labor, or it could be something else we need to address quickly. Lily's face went pale. But it's too early, she whispered. 36 weeks isn't ideal, but it's not dangerous, Dr. Reynolds reassured her. The important thing is to get you checked out. I'll call ahead so they're expecting you. After hanging up, Lily sat frozen on the couch. I'm not ready, she said, her voice small. The nursery isn't done. I don't have a car seat installed. I haven't even packed a hospital bag. Andrew knelt in front of her. Hey, look at me, he said gently. One step at a time. Let's get a bag packed first. Tell me what you need. His calm voice seemed to anchor her. Lily took a deep breath and nodded. Okay. There's a list on my phone of things to pack. I've been meaning to do it for weeks. Together, they moved through the apartment, gathering clothes, toiletries, and baby items. Andrew found a small duffel bag in Lily's closet and carefully packed everything according to her instructions. What about a car seat? Lily asked as Andrew zipped up the bag. The baby can't leave the hospital without one. We'll figure it out, Andrew promised. One problem at a time. Right now, let's get you to the hospital. The taxi ride was tense. Lily's pains were coming closer together now, about 12 minutes apart. She gripped Andrew's hand each time one hit, her knuckles turning white. In between, she tried to make phone calls to her parents in Arizona, her sister in Chicago, a friend who lived across town, but no one answered at this late hour. They'll call back, Andrew said, trying to sound more confident than he felt. And I'm right here with you. Lily looked at him with tear-filled eyes. Why are you doing all this? You don't even know me. Andrew thought about it as the taxi turned onto the hospital street. I think, he said slowly, sometimes life puts you exactly where you're supposed to be. Today, that was on that subway car with you. Lily squeezed his hand again, this time not from pain. The emergency room was bright and busy even at 11:30 p.m. A nurse took one look at Lily and immediately brought a wheelchair. Dr. Reynolds called ahead. She explained as she helped Lily sit. We're taking you straight up to labor and delivery for monitoring. Andrew followed as they wheeled Lily to the elevator, suddenly aware that he was entering territory he had no experience with. What was his role here? Friend? Support person? Random stranger who'd gotten way too involved. The labor and delivery floor was quieter than the ER, with soft lighting and a surprisingly calm atmosphere. A different nurse met them, checking Lily's bracelet as they entered a private room. I'll need you to change into this gown, she told Lily, handing her a hospital-issue garment. Dad, you can help her if she needs it, or step out if you prefer. Neither of them corrected her assumption. Andrew stepped into the hallway while Lily changed, using the moment to collect his thoughts. He glanced at his phone, still no job, nowhere he needed to be tomorrow. The realization was both terrifying and oddly freeing. When he returned to the room, Lily was in the hospital bed, hooked up to machines that beeped rhythmically. A monitor showed her heartbeat alongside another, faster one, the baby's. They're going to check if I'm actually in labor, Lily explained. Her voice sounded steadier now that they were in the hospital. The nurse said Dr. Reynolds is on her way. Andrew nodded and pulled a chair close to the bed. So now we wait. Now we wait, Lily agreed. She fidgeted with the blanket. Andrew, if I am in labor, would you stay? I know it's asking way too much, but I don't want to be alone, and no one is answering their phones. Hand. Of course I'll stay, Andrew interrupted. The decision felt natural, despite the strangeness of the situation. Lily relaxed visibly. Thank you, she whispered. A young doctor came in then, introducing himself as Dr. Chen. He checked Lily's vitals and performed an exam while Andrew stared intently at the ceiling tiles. Well, Ms. Thompson, you are definitely having contractions, Dr. Chen said. But you're only 1 centimeter dilated. This could be early labor, or it could be what we call false labor. So I'm not having the baby tonight? Lily asked. Probably not immediately, Dr. Chen replied. But with your blood pressure issues, we want to keep you overnight for monitoring. Dr. Reynolds will see you first thing in the morning, and we'll make a plan then. After Dr. Chen left, Lily sank back against the pillows. I don't know whether to be relieved or disappointed, she admitted. Andra smiled. Maybe a bit of both is okay. A nurse brought extra blankets and a pillow for Andra, setting them on a small couch by the window. Try to get some rest, she advised them both. Labor or not, tomorrow will be a long day. As the night deepened, the hospital grew quieter. Lily dozed between contractions, which gradually spaced further apart. Andra tried to get comfortable on the too small couch, watching the city lights through the window. Just before dawn, he heard Lily whisper his name. Can't sleep? He asked softly. I was just thinking, she said. 24 hours ago, we didn't know each other existed. And now you're sleeping on an uncomfortable hospital couch because of me. Andra smiled in the dimness. Life is funny that way. If you hadn't offered me that seat on the subway. Lily didn't finish the thought. But I did, Andra said simply. And here we are. Outside the window, the first hint of sunrise painted the horizon in gentle pinks and golds. Whatever happened next? Andra knew that something remarkable had already occurred. Two strangers had become something more, all because of one small act of kindness on a crowded subway train. Morning arrived with a soft knock on the door. Dr. Reynolds entered, looking fresh despite the early hour. She smiled when she saw Andra still there, his tall frame awkwardly folded onto the small couch. You stayed all night, she observed, checking Lily's chart. That's dedication. Andra stretched, his back cracking from the uncomfortable position. How is she? He asked, nodding toward Lily, who was still asleep. Let's find out, Dr. Reynolds said, gently touching Lily's shoulder. Lily? Time to wake up. Lily's eyes fluttered open. For a moment, confusion crossed her face, then recognition. The contractions mostly stopped around 3 in the morning, she said, sitting up slowly. Dr. Reynolds nodded. That's what the nurses reported. Let's see what's happening now. After examining Lily and checking the various monitors, Dr. Reynolds sat at the edge of the bed. The good news is you're not in active labor. The bad news is your blood pressure is still higher than I'd like. I want to keep you here for another day or two. Lily's face fell. But I don't have anything with me except overnight stuff. I can go get whatever you need, Andra offered. He had dark circles under his eyes, but his voice was steady. Just make a list. Dr. Reynolds looked between them, a small smile playing at her lips. You two just met yesterday. On the subway? They'd both nodded. Well, the doctor said, standing up, the world needs more people like you, Andra. Now, Lily, I want you on complete bed rest here. We're going to monitor your blood pressure closely and do what we can to keep that baby cooking a little longer. After the doctor left, a hospital breakfast arrived, rubbery eggs, dry toast, and a cup of fruit that looked like it had been cut days ago. Lily poked at it without enthusiasm. I'd kill for some real coffee, she sighed, eyeing the weak hospital brew. Write it on the list, Andra said, passing her his phone. I'll get you decent coffee when I come back. Lily started typing, then looked up suddenly. Wait, do you even have a key to my apartment? Andra paused. He hadn't thought of that. Good point. Can you call someone who has one? Lily checked her own phone. My friend Beth called back. She can meet you there with the spare I gave her. As they made plans, a nurse entered with medication for Lily. She was a motherly woman with kind eyes and gray-streaked hair pulled into a neat bun. I'm Grace, she said, checking Lily's wristband. I'll be taking care of you today. She glanced at Andra. And you must be the subway hero I've been hearing about. Andra felt his face grow warm. I'm just helping out. Grace patted his shoulder. Well, just helping out is exactly what this young lady needs right now. She turned to Lily. The doctor says you need to stay calm and relaxed. No stress, you hear me? Lily nodded, but her eyes were worried. What about work? My apartment? My mail? I was going to set up autopay for my bills this weekend. Hey, Andra interrupted gently. One thing at a time, remember? Let's put all that on the list too. I can help with some of it. Grace nodded approvingly as she checked Lily's blood pressure. That's the spirit. Now, I suggest you go get some real breakfast, she told Andra. Our cafeteria makes decent pancakes, and you look like you could use the fuel. After promising Lily he'd return as soon as possible, Andra made his way to the cafeteria. Over a stack of surprisingly good pancakes, he called Damon about the potential job at River of Design Group. They want to interview you tomorrow, Damon said. I told them you're great. Thanks, man, Andrew replied. But I might need to push it a day or two. I'm helping someone through a tough situation. There was a pause on the line. This mysterious family emergency again? Who is she? Andrew nearly choked on his coffee. Why do you assume it's a she? Because I know you, Damon laughed. So what's her name? Andrew hesitated, then told Damon the whole story, the subway, the doctor's appointment, the job loss, the contractions, the hospital. When he finished, there was silence on the other end. Damon, you still there? Yeah, Damon finally said. I'm just trying to decide if you're the craziest or the kindest person I know. Maybe both, but listen, if you need help, I'm here. Beth can't be the only one picking up stuff from Lily's place. Andrew felt a rush of gratitude. Thanks. I might take you up on that. After breakfast, Andrew met Beth outside Lily's apartment building. She was a petite woman with bright purple hair and an assortment of tattoos up both arms. So you're the subway guardian angel, she said, looking him up and down. Lily texted me the whole story. Pretty wild. Just trying to help, Andrew said, feeling like he'd repeated those words 100 times in the last 24 hours. Beth unlocked the apartment door. Well, I appreciate it. I'd be there myself, but I'm leaving for a work trip in 3 hours. Been planning it for months. Together, they gathered everything on Lily's list: clothes, her laptop, chargers, toiletries, a small stuffed rabbit she wanted for the baby, and an envelope of important documents from her desk drawer. Beth showed Andrew where the spare key was hidden in case he needed to come back. You're sure you're okay doing all this? Beth asked as they loaded everything into a rideshare. Honestly, I'm not sure of anything right now, Andrew admitted, but it feels like the right thing to do. Beth studied him for a moment, then nodded. Well, you have my number now. Use it if either of you needs anything. Back at the hospital, Andrew found Lily looking better. Grace had helped her shower and change into fresh pajamas, and her hair was neatly braided. You brought everything, Lily exclaimed as Andrew unpacked the bags. Even Mr. Carrots. She hugged the stuffed rabbit to her chest. Beth helped, Andrew said, setting up Lily's laptop on the rolling table. She seems nice. She's the best, Lily agreed. We've been friends since college. She hesitated, then added, I talked to my parents while you were gone. They're booking flights, but the earliest they could get is day after tomorrow. That's good, Andrew said, arranging Lily's things in the small hospital room. I told them about you. Lily continued, watching his reaction. They want to meet you. Andrew stopped what he was doing. What did you tell them? The truth, Lily said simply. That a kind stranger offered me his seat on the subway and somehow ended up being my guardian angel through the scariest days of my life. Their eyes met across the room, and something unspoken passed between them. The moment was interrupted by Grace returning with another medication dose. Blood pressure's looking better, she announced cheerfully. Whatever you are doing, keep it up. As Grace checked the monitors, Andrew's phone buzzed with a text from Damon. Got you a 4 p.m. interview slot 2 days from now. Don't mess it up. Andrew smiled to himself. 2 days. In 2 days, Lily's parents would be here. He would have his job interview. Things would start going back to normal. But looking at Lily, her brown eyes warm as she talked with Grace, her hands resting protectively on her belly, Andrew wasn't sure he wanted normal anymore. Normal was before. Normal was his lonely apartment, his dead-end job, his life that felt like it was on pause. Whatever this was, this strange, unexpected detour, it felt more real than anything had in a long time. You okay? Lily asked, noticing his distant expression. Andrew nodded, coming back to the present moment. Yeah, he said. I'm right where I'm supposed to be. The next day passed in a blur of hospital routines. Doctors came and went. Nurses checked vitals. Lily's blood pressure gradually improved with medication and rest. Andra stayed by her side, leaving only briefly to shower at his own apartment and grab fresh clothes. By the afternoon of the second day, Lily was going stir-crazy in her small room. "If I have to watch one more episode of daytime TV, I might lose my mind," she groaned, clicking off a talk show where the audience was screaming over free gifts. Andra looked up from his sketchbook. He'd been drawing on and off all day, ideas for children's book characters that had been floating in his head for years. "Want to go for a walk? The doctor said short trips to the lounge are okay now." Lily practically leaped from the bed. "Yes, please." They walked slowly down the corridor, Lily in her hospital gown and a robe, Andra carrying her IV pole. The maternity floor's lounge had large windows overlooking the city park across the street. The late afternoon sun bathed everything in golden light. Fresh air would be amazing right now, Lily sighed, pressing her hand against the window glass. "Tell you what," Andra said, "when the doctor gives you the all clear to leave, I'll take you to the park, even if it's just for 15 minutes. Lily smiled. "I'll hold you to that." They sat on a small couch, watching the world outside, people walking dogs, kids playing on swings, couples holding hands on benches. "It's strange," Lily said after a while. 3 days ago, my biggest worry was how I'd manage alone with the baby. Now I'm worried about my blood pressure and early labor." She rubbed her belly absently. "And somehow, in the middle of all this chaos, I feel less alone than I have in months." Andra nodded, understanding exactly what she meant. Before he could respond, his phone buzzed. It was a reminder for his job interview the next day. "Your interview?" Lily asked, noticing his expression. "Yeah, 4 o'clock tomorrow." "Are you ready for it?" Andra shrugged. "I think so. I updated my portfolio last night while you were sleeping. Added some of my new sketches. The ones with the little fox character? Those are fantastic," Lily said enthusiastically. "They're going to love them." A nurse appeared in the doorway. "Ms. Thompson, your doctor is on her way for evening rounds." They made their way back to the room where Dr. Reynolds was reviewing Lily's chart. "Good news," she announced. "Your numbers are looking much better. If they stay stable overnight, I think we can discharge you tomorrow morning, provided you continue strict bed rest at home." Lily clapped her hands together. "Really? I can go home?" "With conditions," Dr. Reynolds cautioned. "Someone needs to check on you at least twice daily. No cooking, no cleaning, no errands. Bathroom and short walks only. Can you manage that?" Lily's smile faltered. "I'll figure something out." Andra stepped forward. "I can help." Both women looked at him with surprise. "I mean, I have my interview tomorrow afternoon, but otherwise my schedule is wide open." Dr. Reynolds raised an eyebrow. "That's very generous, Andra, but we're talking about potentially weeks of assistance." "I understand," he said firmly. "I want to help." After the doctor left, Lily turned to him with wide eyes. "Andra, you can't put your life on hold for me." "I'm not," he insisted. "I'm still going to look for work, still going to live my life. But I can also check on you, bring groceries, make sure you're following doctor's orders." He smiled. "Besides, it'll give me time to work on my book illustrations." Lily studied his face, looking for hesitation. Finding none, she nodded slowly. "Okay, but only until my parents arrive. Then we reassess." Later that evening, as Lily dozed after dinner, Andra sat sketching in the dimly lit room. His phone buzzed with a text from Beth. "How's our girl?" "Better," he typed back. "Probably going home tomorrow." "Good news." "I'm still out of town till next week. Keep me posted." "Will do," Andra replied. He returned to his drawing. A pregnant fox resting under a tree while a rabbit brought her berries. He'd never drawn anything like it before, but somehow the image had appeared in his mind fully formed. A soft knock at the door interrupted his thoughts. An older couple peered in hesitantly. "We're looking for Lily Thompson's room," the woman said. Andra stood quickly. "You must be Lily's parents. You're early. She said you weren't coming until tomorrow." The woman's eyes welled with tears. "We got an earlier flight. We've been so worried." She looked past Andra to where Lily slept. "Oh, my baby." "Let her rest," the man said gently, holding his wife's arm. He extended his hand to Andra. "I'm Robert. This is Nancy, and you must be the young man our daughter hasn't stopped talking about." Andrew shook their hands, suddenly aware of how the situation might look, him sitting comfortably at their pregnant daughter's bedside like he belonged there. "I'm Andrew. It's nice to meet you. Lily will be so happy you're here." Nancy wiped her eyes. "She told us everything. How you helped her, stayed with her, took care of things." Her voice broke slightly. Not many people would do that for a stranger. "She's easy to help," Andrew said simply. "Your daughter is pretty amazing." Robert nodded, studying Andrew with curious eyes. "She said you lost your job because of all this." Andrew shrugged. "It wasn't the right fit anyway." "I have an interview tomorrow that looks promising." "For what kind of work?" Nancy asked. "Graphic design at Rivera Design Group. But I'm hoping to eventually illustrate children's books." He gestured to his sketchbook. "That's what I really love doing." Nancy's face brightened. Lily was always into art too, as a child. She had the most wonderful imagination. As they chatted quietly by the door, a small sound from the bed drew their attention. Lily was waking up. "Mom? Dad?" she called, her voice thick with sleep. Nancy rushed to her side, enveloping her in a careful hug. "We're here, sweetie." Tears spilled down Lily's cheeks as she reached for her father, who joined the embrace. Andrew stood back, suddenly feeling like an intruder on this family moment. "I should go," he said softly. "Give you all some time together." Lily looked up, alarm crossing her face. "You're leaving." "Just for tonight," Andrew assured her. "I'll be back in the morning before you're discharged." He gathered his things, oddly reluctant to go despite knowing Lily was in good hands now. Robert followed him to the door. "Son," he said in a low voice, "I don't know how to thank you for what you've done for my daughter." Andrew shook his head. "No thanks needed, sir." "Come by for dinner sometime, when all this settles down," Robert insisted. "Nancy makes the best pot roast you've ever tasted." "I'd like that," Andrew replied, surprised to find he genuinely meant it. As he walked out of the hospital into the cool evening air, Andrew felt a strange mix of emotions. Relief that Lily had her parents now, pride that he'd been able to help when she needed it, and an unexpected sadness at the thought that his role in her life might be coming to an end. His phone buzzed with a text. It was from Lily. "Don't you dare ghost me now that my parents are here. I still need my park visit. Plus, someone has to finish that Fox story you're drawing." Andrew smiled at his phone, the sadness lifting. Maybe this wasn't an ending after all. 3 weeks passed in a new routine. Lily went home to her apartment where her parents took the guest room. Andrew visited daily, sometimes bringing groceries, other times just his sketchbook and conversation. Nancy made too much food at every meal and insisted Andrew stay to eat. Robert told stories about Lily as a child that made her groan with embarrassment, but laugh all the same. Andrew's interview at River of Design Group had gone well, so well that they offered him the job on the spot, with a salary that made his old position look like pocket change. He'd started the following Monday, working on designs for a major athletic company, but each evening after work, his steps led him to Lily's apartment. "You don't have to check on me every day," Lily told him one evening as they sat on her small balcony. The doctor had finally allowed her to move around more freely, though heavy lifting and extended walks were still off limits. "Mom and Dad have it covered." "I know," Andrew said, watching the sunset paint the sky in pinks and oranges. "I want to be here." Nancy poked her head through the balcony door. "Andrew, are you staying for dinner?" "I made lasagna." "Wouldn't miss it," he replied with a smile. Later, as he helped clear the dishes while Lily rested on the couch, Nancy cornered him in the kitchen. "You care about her," she said. "It wasn't a question." Andrew carefully placed a plate in the dishwasher. "I do." Nancy waited as if expecting more. When he offered nothing else, she said, "It's remarkable, you know, how you two found each other." "On a crowded subway," Andrew nodded. "Just luck." "I don't believe in luck," Nancy said firmly. "I believe in purpose. My daughter needed someone, and there you were." She handed him another plate. "The question is, where will you be when she doesn't need you anymore?" The question caught Andrew off guard. "I don't know," he admitted. "We haven't really talked about after." Nancy patted his arm. "Maybe you should." The opportunity came sooner than expected. 2 days later, Dr. Reynolds confirmed what they'd all suspected might happen. Lily needed to deliver early. Her blood pressure was creeping up again despite medication, and tests showed the baby had grown enough to be safely delivered. "We're scheduling you for tomorrow morning," Dr. Reynolds explained during a checkup. "A controlled induction is safer than risking complications." That evening, Lily's apartment buzzed with nervous energy. Nancy packed and repacked the hospital bag. Robert made phone calls to relatives. Andrew sat with Lily in the nursery, now fully prepared with a crib, changing table, and rocking chair. "Scared?" he asked as Lily ran her hand over the tiny clothes folded in the dresser. "Terrified," she admitted, "but ready, I think." Andrew nodded. "Your parents are staying another 2 weeks after the baby comes, right?" "Yes, Mom's already talking about extending it to a month." Lily smiled fondly. "I didn't realize how much I missed them until they got here." "They're great people," Andrew agreed. "You're lucky to have them." A shadow crossed Lily's face. "I've been thinking about that a lot, how lucky I am, despite everything. I have parents who dropped everything to come help me. I have a job that's holding my position. I have a home, health insurance." She met his eyes. "And I had a stranger on a subway who changed everything." Andrew felt his chest tighten. "Lily." "No, let me finish," she said. "Tomorrow I'm having this baby. My life is about to change forever. And I need you to know that whatever happens next, meeting you was no accident. You weren't just some nice guy who offered his seat. You became essential." The word hung in the air between them. Essential. Not just helpful, not just kind. Essential. "I don't know what happens after tomorrow," Andrew said carefully. "Your parents are here. The baby will be here. You won't need me bringing groceries or assembling furniture." "Is that what you think this is about? Me needing your help?" Lily's eyes flashed. "Andrew, my parents could have hired someone to do all that. What I needed, what I still need, is you. The person who saw me when no one else did. Who listened. Who cared." Andrew took her hand, his heart racing. "I'm not going anywhere, Lily. Not unless you want me to." The moment was interrupted by Nancy calling from the kitchen that dinner was ready. But something had shifted between them, a question asked and answered without words. The next morning was a whirlwind. They arrived at the hospital at 6 a.m., where nurses prepped Lily for her induction. Andrew waited in the hallway while she changed into a gown, feeling oddly calm despite the magnitude of the day ahead. Robert clapped a hand on his shoulder. "Ready for this, son?" "As ready as I can be," Andrew replied. "Though I'm not the one doing the hard work." Robert chuckled. "True enough. But having you here means the world to her." He hesitated, then added, "to all of us." Hours passed in the slow rhythm of early labor. Lily walked the halls with her mother on one side and Andrew on the other. She bounced on a birthing ball while Andrew rubbed her back. She dozed between contractions as he sketched quietly nearby. By late afternoon, things intensified. Lily's face contorted with each wave of pain. She gripped Andrew's hand so tightly he lost feeling in his fingers, but he never complained. "You're doing amazing," he told her over and over. "You're the strongest person I know." At 6:43 p.m., after a final mighty push, a new sound filled the room, the angry cry of a baby taking her first breath. The doctor lifted up a tiny, red-faced, squirming little girl. "She's perfect," the nurse announced, placing the infant on Lily's chest. 7 pounds, 2 ounces. Tears streamed down Lily's face as she cradled her daughter. Nancy and Robert stood nearby, both crying openly. Andrew hung back, overwhelmed by the raw emotion of the moment. "Andrew," Lily called softly. "Come meet her." He moved to the bedside, gazing down at the small bundle. The baby had a head full of dark hair and a perfect rosebud mouth. As he watched, she opened her eyes, dark blue and unfocused, yet somehow looking right at him. "Would you like to hold her?" Lily asked. Before Andrew could answer, a nurse placed the swaddled infant in his arms. The tiny weight of her felt at once terrifying and natural. The baby squirmed, then settled against him with a small sigh. "She knows you," Nancy whispered. "She's heard your voice all these weeks." Looking down at this new life, this miracle who might never have arrived safely if not for a chance meeting on a crowded subway, Andrew felt his world shift permanently on its axis. "What's her name?" he asked, his voice thick with emotion. Lily smiled up at him, exhausted but radiant. "Hope," she said. "Her name is Hope." And in that moment, surrounded by a family that wasn't his but had somehow become his, Andrew understood what Lily had meant about purpose. Some things weren't accidents. Some meetings weren't chance. Some kindnesses were just the beginning of a much bigger story.